Hiya, Calvin. Good to see you again. It's been a long time since our previous life at Love Sport.
Oh, that was good, wasn't it? Love Sport. Well, let's hope this lasts a bit longer than Love Sport. That bloody cost. By the way, that cost me millions. That cost me more than Harry's going to have to pay in legal bills. Right, Josh, tell me, what's going to happen now? I mean, would people like Liz Hurley have to pay millions as well? I mean, where's all this money going to come from? There's some suggestion that Elton John may have bankrolled Doreen Lawrence. I don't know whether that's true. But, I mean, Harry can't be bankrolled. So that's a huge amount of money. I'm so pleased he got stuff because you can't imagine what that was like. If he had won that case, he would have been on the steps of the court, wouldn't he? Giving it large. Why did they think they didn't have the goods? And when he was in the witness box, it became clear he didn't have the goods.
Yeah, it's funny because with all of them, it wasn't just a little bit. I think they thought I think what their approach is, they'll throw as much as the wall and see what sticks, because they had over 90 instances that they claimed contained unlawful information gathering. There was over 50 counts. So I think they probably thought, if there was just one that we could prove, just one, just like in the Mirror case, just like with MGM, if there was just one, they'll be in for a winner. But Judge Nicklin, the ruling was absolutely unanimous, complete and utter victory, I think, not just for the Mail, but for the British press. And I've spoken to a number of journalists that have been involved in the case. You know, my very good friend Nicole Lampert was one of those accused. And it wasn't just, you know, royals here. It was, of course, mainly showbiz, Elton John, Liz Hurley, David Furnish. And effectively, these were not just the livelihoods, but the entire reputation, decades-long career of journalists here were on the line. And the ruling was absolutely unanimous. And you could see in the judgment as well what the judge says. Every single journalist was called either impressive, credible, and very much believable. So on that case, it's interesting. And it's very interesting what you say about Doreen Lawrence, because this is the thing. And actually, from what Paul Dacre said since then, has been actually, you can tell he took Doreen Lawrence especially very personally, because this was a man that put his entire livelihood on the line by naming those killers before the trial on the front page that newspaper. He was not just putting his job on the line. He could have been in prison for contempt of court. He could have lost his entire livelihood. This could have had long-lasting impacts for his family. This was a 15-year campaign by the Mail to get justice for the Lawrence family. And you could tell that actually during the case as well, he took that very personally. He said it was bitterly wounding. Those were his words during the trial. So I think Doreen Lawrence as well, and he even said, my heart bleeds for Doreen. This was something that the Mail really took on as one of their real kind of almost like a humanitarian campaign to get that justice, that well-deserved justice for the Lawrence family. But that's the thing. I think they take a rather more dim view when it comes to Prince Harry and the other celebrities.
So you're Prince Harry, right? You've come over here.
Not my prince.
Yeah, you come over here and your dad, you fall out with your dad, okay? The guy's got cancer. Give me a break. Why would you want to fall out with your dad, right? So your dad's got cancer. You got nowhere to live, right? You're a homeless twerp. You then drop anywhere between 5 and 15 million pounds in legal bills, okay? Which I suspect, as somebody has just tweeted there, Meghan will have to sell a lot of jam to fund that lot, right? Why doesn't he? He refuses to go to camera. He refuses to give a press conference, both of which he would have done, actually, if he'd won, right? You can't imagine. And the demands for Leveson 2, Leveson 22, Leveson 2022 be something like that. Why doesn't he just bugger off back to Montecito, or however you pronounce it, to the west coast of America, and leave us alone? He doesn't like this country. He's clearly not well in himself. I was quite taken by what Paul Dacre said, because he was quite generous towards him, wasn't he? Why be generous? That'd be me. I'd have poured the biggest bucket in history on him. Why doesn't he do that? Why didn't he? Supposing that had been you, right? You'd just been put through a torture of years of research and money, and you triumphed. This guy here, who was actually determined to destroy you, wouldn't you have given him a good old boom? No?
Yes and also no, because of course the Mail is under different leadership now, but this is still a company that actually put the entire weight of their company behind their journalists. We're not talking recent stories here, we're talking decades old stories ranging from the 90s to the early noughties. So this is a company that has shown Paul Dacre a lot of goodwill and was willing to stand by him. And Paul Dacre as well has been very gracious in victory, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I will say his words towards Prince Harry, as he said, there's not a laundry in the world big enough to wash the dirty linen that Prince Harry aired about his own family in Spare. So he's still making a huge point about the alleged hypocrisy of surrounding Prince Harry as well. And actually, I think the Mail just want to obviously keep calm, carry on. They've still got papers to sell. They've got a website to run. I do still freelance for them a bit. So it's keep calm, carry on. But I think it's more of a case of let Harry kind of hang himself, so to speak, in terms of he's the one who showed himself up to be an utter hypocrite, seeking huge damages for invasion of privacy, and then losing on this huge level. It's utterly humiliating for Prince Harry. And he's also suffered that humiliation in court as well. And especially, I'm sure you've read the summary judgment. I was there in the courtroom as Harry was giving evidence. The judge had to step in 3 times to remind Harry, and it was also written down in the summary judgment as well, that actually it's up to the lawyers to argue the case, and Harry was just there to provide evidence. And you could tell in Harry's testimony that he was on this crusade in court, that he was determined to put these points forward in that way, and the judge stepped in. But it was also very clear that Harry was his testimony was confused, he was angry, but he also didn't at times understand the particulars of the case as well. Like, there was one time, I think it was either about Tara Palmer Tompkinson or Natalie Pinkham, when he said that she could never have been and has never been a source, to which the Mail said, the lawyers for the Mail said, well, this article has a direct quote from her, so actually she is the definition of a source in this instance. So that's the thing. He showed himself up, and then at the end, when he kind of he had to hold back tears, he broke down in tears, saying, "Oh, they've made my wife's life an utter misery." Well, Meghan Markle had absolutely nothing to do with this case whatsoever. So the whole thing is during his own testimony, Harry was caught out several times. I think he just didn't. He also said as well that he became distrusting of his circle, but yet his circle would never leak things. So those two facts don't add up as well. And I just don't think that he wanted to accept that, one, his inner circle were leaking things to journalists, and actually that journalists like Charlotte Griffiths, like Katie Nicholl, perfectly respectable journalists, as Katie Nicholl said, she did things the old-fashioned way. She curated content. She went out to party. Prince Harry even welcomed her into parties. He didn't want to admit that his own social circle were leaking things, and that actually he had a very good friendship with journalists, because of course that doesn't align with the narrative that he's painted in all of his documentaries and all of his interviews. And actually, I will continue to point back to the Harry and Meghan documentary as well, because in that he talks about the Royal Rota, and how the Royal Rota is a system that they give access to all the newspapers. Well, in that documentary, he casually fails to mention the fact that BBC, ITV, CNN, and all the broadcast companies are also in the Royal Rota as well. And of course, broadcast companies that he has since given interviews to. So Prince Harry is careful to spin this narrative. And actually, what this court case does more than anything, it just blows the narrative up in his face.
Right, well, that's a very good point. Okay, one final point then, Josh, is this. okay, he's now going to he's going to fly back to his family. When is this soap opera going to end? The problem is that they're both self-involved people, aren't they? He and his wife. It actually damages them now. It doesn't damage our country. It doesn't damage the royal family. We can all get on fine with our lives. We found that them going to the West Coast is probably the best thing that could ever happen. Why don't they just stay out there? What is this constant demand to actually cause trouble, even to a sick man like King Charles? What is his issue?
Well, this is the thing. I don't think he views it as an issue. He said very publicly several times that he wants a reconciliation. The lines that I've been getting out from speaking to my sources is that actually His Majesty the King also wants a reconciliation. His Majesty the King misses his son very much on a personal level. And now, since his cancer diagnosis, he knows that actually, as he himself has stated in speeches, he doesn't have long left on the planet. And that he wants to reconcile with his son. He wants to spend more time with his grandchildren. He hasn't seen his grandchildren since the Platinum Jubilee celebrations back in 2022. And from what I'm getting about Prince Harry is I don't think he wants to necessarily cause trouble. He does actually miss this country. And the thing is, him flying back, I think it's important to state that he's not flying back for this court case. He's flying back for Invictus Games, and he's also going to be doing other charitable endeavours. I know he's got a Well Child event coming up this week as well. He's going to Birmingham to mark the 1-year countdown to the Invictus Games in 2027, which, of course, helping military veterans is an absolutely admirable cause there. So actually, I've got, from that side of things, I'm not going to criticise him. And also, I know people might disagree with me, but with Meghan, all she wants to do is kind of make it in Hollywood, and all she wants to do is really sell jam. She's not the one actually causing the problems here. The main person causing the problems, the main person taking the state to court for security, isn't Meghan Markle. It's Prince Harry. And actually, I think there has been a lot of people that are just willing to hate on Meghan for absolutely anything she does. Now, of course, she has caused damage to the royal family previously. I will absolutely concede that. But I think now, from what I'm getting from speaking to sources, is that actually she just wants to make it in Hollywood. She just wants to sell jam. She just wants to make a living. And unfortunately, she may or may not have the ideas to go with that. And that's another subject entirely. But actually, I see the person who's making all this trouble is Prince Harry. And, this trip was meant to be a kind of sort of reconciliation trip. And also, I also still think that a meeting might happen behind closed doors, because if you look at the headlines closely, and from I've been speaking to sources as well, that they've emphasized it just won't happen in London. Now, that's the thing, in London. Now, I don't think it's going to happen in Birmingham, but there's no reason to suggest that actually it might still happen behind closed doors, that Prince Harry, Meghan, and the kids might meet the king, maybe in Windsor Castle. His Majesty's not going to alter his itinerary, but they could go to Windsor Castle. They do come under security there, under the Windsor Park estate. So it might still happen behind closed doors, and we might only know about this afterwards. It's not out the question.
Okay, well, that's fantastic. That's very interesting, by the way. And do I wish it to happen between the father and son? I think with Dad not being very well, then the answer must be yes, actually, because you never know, when the last meeting might have been. But Josh, thank you very much for the insight. I'm much taken with you. Good to see you. And let's hope UK Live turns out to be a bit better than Love Sport. That's for sure. Certainly.
I'm sure it will, Kelvin.
It was not very good for my wallet. I do know that. Okay. So we'll go for the news, and then I'm hoping that the Leo Kirsch going to come on. Now he is a funny guy.